If you were suddenly dropped into a frozen forest in 1942 with nothing but the clothes on your back, a rifle slung over your shoulder and a pack with barely any supplies, survival would demand more than just luck or courage. Armies learned this lesson the hard way. It wasn't canned peaches or stale bread that kept soldiers alive on the front lines in some of the harshest theatres of World War II. It was a type of food so ancient in origin, so brutally effective, that it could last close to a decade without refrigeration, without preservatives, and without losing its ability to fuel a human being in the cold. Today, most people have never heard of it, let alone tasted it, and yet it quietly saved lives where modern rations would have failed. Before we dive into exactly what this food was, make sure to like, share, comment and subscribe to The Hard Past, because the history that actually teaches survival is exactly what we uncover here. The food in question is called Pemkin. Unlike modern processed rations, Pemkin wasn't the result of a factory experiment or chemical innovation. It originated from the survival knowledge of Indigenous North Americans, refined over centuries, then adopted by explorers, fur traders, and eventually militaries operating in extreme conditions. By the time World War II arrived, Allied forces rediscovered Pemkin's value, particularly in Arctic patrols and long-range operations in Alaska, northern Canada, and the frozen reaches of northern Europe. The brilliance of Pemkin lay in its simplicity. Lean meat, dried until it snapped rather than bent, was pulverized into fine fibers and then combined with rendered fat. Occasionally, dried berries were added, both for minimal flavor and to stabilize the mixture slightly. There was no moisture, no oxygen pockets, and no sugars to feed microbial growth. The result was a dense, compact block of pure energy that bacteria and molds couldn't penetrate. Military testing during the war revealed a staggering fact. When stored correctly, Pemkin could remain edible for years. Cold storage stretched that lifespan even further, and some examples pulled from forgotten caches decades later still retained their nutritional value. The reason for this incredible longevity is rooted in biology. Meat spoils when bacteria have moisture to drink, oxygen to breathe, and sugars or proteins to consume. Pemkin removed all three. The drying process eliminated water. The rendering of fat ensured no moisture remained and sealed the meat from oxygen, and carbohydrates were almost entirely absent. Preservation wasn't achieved through chemical intervention, but through removing the conditions that made spoilage possible in the first place. This is a lesson modern food systems often overlook. Today, we attempt to fight spoilage with additives, preservatives, and refrigeration. Pemkin showed that survival food could be simple, durable, and completely natural. For soldiers in extreme cold or on long treks, Pemkin wasn't a comfort food. It was a tool for survival. 1 pound of properly made Pemkin could provide over 3,000 calories, concentrated in fat and protein that the human body burns efficiently during exertion. In Arctic conditions, where carbohydrates and sugars are quickly exhausted or freeze solid, fat is king. Soldiers on skis, long-range scouts and air crews in freezing temperatures relied on Pemkin because it allowed them to maintain energy without constant resupply or risk of food spoilage. Canned rations could crack under frost, bread went stale, and sugar froze solid. Pemkin remained usable, versatile, and calorie-dense. It also solved a logistical nightmare. Armies often struggled to transport sufficient food to remote outposts or behind enemy lines. Pemkin allowed days of sustenance to fit into a small space and required no cooking. It could be eaten frozen, shaved into soups, or melted into stews. For a soldier operating in the middle of nowhere with supply lines stretched thin, that was the difference between survival and failure. After the war, however, Pemkin largely disappeared. Industrial rations replaced it. Mass-produced canned meals, freeze-dried packets, and the later meals ready to eat were designed for standardized production, variety and morale, not pure survival efficiency. Pemkin's dense fat content, its honest caloric value, and its labour-intensive preparation didn't fit into post-war military logistics. Indigenous knowledge and centuries of slow, careful preparation were sidelined for convenience, and the world largely forgot what truly effective survival food looked like. For those interested in preparedness today, Pemkin offers a lesson that is still practical. Shelf life isn't a miracle, it's physics and biology. By thoroughly drying lean meat, rendering fat until completely clear of water, and storing the resulting mixture in airtight conditions, anyone can replicate the principles that kept soldiers alive in some of the harshest conditions ever faced. It doesn't need daily consumption. It is stored for emergencies, for times when nothing else works. The mindset behind Pemkin, valuing function over comfort and long-term survival over convenience, is just as relevant now as it was in 1942. Understanding Pemkin isn't just a historical curiosity, it's a reminder that human survival knowledge predates factories, marketing and modern convenience. It's knowledge built on observation, trial and error, and it saved lives where other systems failed. If you care about history that teaches something useful, about the kind of lessons that can actually make a difference when conditions turn deadly, this is exactly the kind of knowledge worth preserving. Make sure you subscribe to The Hard Past. Share this with someone who believes survival is all about gadgets, and keep these lessons alive before they are lost again.